Okay, let's talk about the skull bones and their bony landmarks. So starting off, we have the frontal bone. So right here is the supraorbital margin with the supraorbital notches right there. This is the glabella. And then if we pop this open, we can see the anterior cranial fossa. And then not on this model, but on the sinus model, we can see the frontal sinus right here. Moving on to our sphenoid bone, we have our greater wing in here, the lesser wing on top. We've got in here, you can see it, the superior orbital fissure, the inferior orbital fissure. Then we're going to have the saddle area, the sella turcica, with the hypophyseal fossa in the middle. Followed by our optic canals in there. Flip it around. We've got our medial pterygoid process, the lateral pterygoid processes. And then not on this model, but on this one, our sphenoidal sinus. Then you'll see we've got the foramen rotundum, foramen ovale, and then the foramen spinosum. Alright, and it's a little difficult to see on this model, but in the purple here, it's part of the ethmoid bone. This is our cribriform plate, the crista galli in the middle, and the olfactory foramina or cribriform foramina surrounding it. Okay, now we can see the middle nasal concha, the superior nasal concha, the perpendicular plate of the ethmoid bone, and then again, not on this model, not on the skull model, but on the sinus model, we can see the ethmoidal sinuses right here. Alright, now we've got the parietal bone, all this right here, and then this is the temporal line. Okay, the zygomatic process of the temporal bone is right here. Then we've got our middle cranial fossa in here. The external acoustic meatus in here, right here. Then we've got the internal acoustic meatus. Then we've got the mastoid process and the styloid process. Okay, then the carotid canal and the jugular foramen. Moving on to our occipital bone in brown here, we'll have our occipital condyles, the foramen magnum, the big hole right there, which holds your spinal cord. Then we've got our external occipital protuberance with our superior neutral line, inferior neutral line. Pop this open. We've got our posterior cranial fossa and our hypoglossal canal right there. Okay, now let's move on to our mandible. Right here, our lower jaw, which is better seen on this model. So we're going to start off with our mandibular angle running along here. This is the ramus. Then we've got our neck, the head with the coronoid process, condylar process. And then we're going to move on. We're going to have our alveolar process here holding all of the teeth. Then we've got our mental foramen right here. And then our mandibular symphysis along the middle. And we've also got the mandibular notch right up here. Moving on to the zygomatic bone, which is right here in blue. We've got the zygomatic arch along here, and then the temporal process of the zygomatic bone. Now we've got our vomer bone here in green. This is going to have your internal nares, and then it makes up part of the nasal septum. Next, moving on, we've got our maxilla, which is our upper jaw, with the infraorbital foramen and the alveolar margin that have the teeth. Followed by our nasal bone, pretty easy. Then we've got our lacrimal bone in here, with the lacrimal fossa here. And then deep inside, which we can't see, we have our inferior nasal concha and our palatine bones. We've got the frontal suture, sagittal suture, lambdoid suture, and squamous suture.